Hey guys, welcome to BroTalk. Welcome to another episode on this fabulous book, The 48 Laws of Power. This time we'll be talking about Law 9 and Law 10, in
Mhm.
which my brother and I will be engaging into a very interesting conversation. So please stay tuned. Please like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Thank you. All right. Law 9. This book, every time I read it more and more, I catch myself smiling more and more just
Wow.
because it's fabulous. It's
Mhm.
awesome.
Mhm.
Um, every time, actually, in these laws, I find myself more agreeing with him than disagreeing with him
Oh, compared to the other ones you're saying.
compared to the other ones, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
So in previous laws, there were times where we're not sure if we agree with whatever Robert Greene said, right? Or we can argue certain points, or maybe it was just the way it was written. But at least in these two following laws that we're going to be talking about, I definitely agree a lot on on what he's saying. So let's start off with law 9, right?
Okay. Let's go.
Law 9, it says, win through your actions, never through arguments.
Mm.
The judgment of this law is any momentary triumph you think you have gained through argument is really a psychic victory.
A Pyric.
Oh, pirate victory.
Mhm.
The resentment and ill will you stir up is stronger and lasts longer than any momentary change of opinion. It is much more powerful to get others to agree with you through your actions without saying a word. Demonstrate, do not explicate.
Mhm.
Very interesting chapter. I would like to throw it at you and see what you were able to learn, what you were able to grasp out of this law.
I'm gonna throw it back to you first. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Kidding. No. What I really understood from this chapter, and
Okay.
I even wrote it down. Basically, I really understood like it's a mix of what the chapter is saying and of my own thoughts. Arguments rarely convert people to your side. Evidence
Hmm.
can inform people, but it doesn't always convert. Stories and questionings and silence influence people a lot more, and action seals the deal. This is what I wrote in my notes here in the book.
Okay.
Um, and that's really his main point. Is like, listen, don't really argue, use your words. Your actions speak louder than words. It's like that very
It's
stereotypical cliche expression.
right.
Now, for me, the most fascinating part of this entire chapter was actually the interpretation section from page 70, the bottom of 70 into 71. There is
Okay.
so much truth in what he says here. Um, and one of my favorite things to speak about, as you know, is about, the art and science of communication and so forth. And within that realm is about negotiation, debating. And when I was reading this, what it really made me think is that, for example, if you watch a debate, debates really is not about convincing the other person. Debating a lot of the times is really for the audience, because if we're going to use Robert Greene's perspective, he says basically the arguer does not understand that words are never neutral. There never are, because by arguing with a superior, the intelligence of one or more powerful than he also has no awareness of the person he's dealing with, right? Now,
Hmm.
since each man believes that he is right and words will rarely convince him otherwise, the
Yeah.
arguer's reasoning falls on deaf ears, right? Once he has made the other person feel insecure and inferior in his beliefs, the eloquence of Socrates could not save the situation, right? So, what he's really saying is like, because when you're debating or arguing with someone with a superior, and from my own knowledge and experience and interpretation, just anyone that you're arguing with, a lot of the times when he says your words are not neutral, is because you do not know the state of mind and the emotional intelligence, or the emotions of that person at that moment. So because we don't know that, our words, because they're never neutral, can impact that person so much in a negative way that in our minds we think that our words or our evidence is putting them is bringing logic into the conversation, but because maybe they're ignorant emotionally, or they're in this emotional state of mind that's so like guarded up, we make them worse, and we push them away. And this works. I mean, this is even worse if you do this publicly, right?
Oh
If
yeah, 100%.
because you're embarrassing them, especially if they don't know how to answer back well, or they're not so articulate as you are. You can embarrass the crap out of them, and they're going to even double down on their opinions. And you know, there is this a thing in psychology called the backfire effect, where even though in an argument, you are telling people and you're showing people facts about whatever you're talking about, even though you're showing them facts and you're using logic that contradicts their beliefs or their way of thinking, right?
Hmm.
People a lot of times are going to double down and become even more entrenched in their opinion, especially when it comes to like moral things or like identity stuff, like religion, parenting, ways of doing things, or even politics. They're gonna back, right? So it's like you're showing them all the evidence, but it's gonna backfire because they're gonna double down. Also, in people's minds, a lot of the times, what is happening, and even though Robert Greene doesn't necessarily speak about these psychological effects directly, but I know that if you were to probably ask him, he would probably mention these things as well. It was something called the cognitive dissonance avoidance, whereas like a lot of times human beings, having cognitive dissonance means that it's very difficult for a person to have two contradicting or two
Right.
very opposing beliefs. It bothers us. So if you are arguing with someone and you're bringing something that goes against their identity or their belief system, whatever it is, it's very hard for a person to say I'm wrong, right?
Oh
Especially
yeah.
when it comes to these things, because if they say I'm wrong, they have to rethink their entire life on how to view something, and it's difficult, and it hurts their ego. So that's why Robert Greene is saying you got to win people through actions, especially with a superior or someone who's above you, your boss, the king, someone who has maybe more leverage on you, whatever the case is. Like with the story about the Roman consul Publius with the engineer, right?
Hmm.
Again, there's so many examples. The action, because you're not fighting with them. Your action will show them otherwise. And even though the person will eventually, if you show them with action, you prove them wrong with your actions, it helps them avoid embarrassment, and it helps them avoid this whole concept of like, oh, I have to like bend down to this person because they were right and I was wrong. So this is like a gist of like what I was thinking, and what I was picking up from learning from the show. Again, there's a lot more, but what do you think?
No, I 100% agree with what you're saying. It's very difficult, as you were mentioning, when someone has a belief system or anything, that they've believed their whole life,
Yeah.
and for you to tell them they're wrong, or whatever they've been believing, and it's so concrete in their life, in not only their belief but in their actions throughout their life, and you tell them they're wrong somehow, some way, it's very hard to accept. That being said, when you talked about, either way it is cliche, it holds a lot of truth. Actions do speak louder than words, 100%, but that does not take away how words can be powerful as well. And when you happen to mention that as well, sometimes convincing a person through words, you're not going to be able to, even if you prove them wrong. They're just going to want to double down, because a lot of words that you could say to them could be interpreted through their moods or through insecurities, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And once that is taken out, oh, I you're you don't even know you're doing this a lot of the times, that you're taking out an insecurity, or they could be in a mood. Therefore, they just happen to double down on what they're saying, regardless of being wrong or right. Um, that being said, it relates a lot to the transgression of the law, and where they were talking about this king and how the engineer was smarter, in a sense, right? But instead of following orders from someone superior, he wanted to really make his point. which ended up at the end of the day costing his life, right?
Yeah.
Because he just, by him arguing more, I feel like he just kept digging a grave, digging a
Hmm.
grave, digging himself more and more in. Because a lot of people, unfortunately, like you said, in either have believed something for so long or are in a superior power, are not going to believe your words a lot of the times. And obviously, that could be argued if they're being a good leader or a bad leader. But uh, that this being the case, sometimes you have to prove through actions. Like people want to see change, people want to see that they're actually wrong. Well, you're gonna have to prove it through actions. Therefore, that they're more likely to change through that than you actually telling them again and again and again. Because we've seen it in many cases. They even apply this in leadership. What's the best way to lead? By
Through
example.
example, by example, yeah.
By example. And that's the best way to put it, right? The best way to lead is by example. And how do you lead by example? Is through your own actions. You might not even say a word, but once people that look up to you, once your family, once your son see what you're doing, they're gonna want to start to copy it because they're like, okay, you know what? This person not only says that they're gonna do it, they actually apply it to their life, right? But was what another story that was very interesting in, but this is actually in the observance of the law, was of, and tell me if I'm pronouncing it right, is Michelangelo
Michelangelo.
and
Well,
Michelangelo.
I mean, that's how we say it, but you're right. I hear it's spelled a little different, but let's go with Michelangelo. Yeah.
But Michelangelo, right? So he knew how to win someone over in a sense without hurting their ego. And he described it very interestingly when there was a raw piece of stone that they had previously thought that wasn't going to be for good use, but he had convinced them that he could make something out of it, right?
Yes.
Afterwards, Sor Soderini, I'm
Yeah.
going to say it in Spanish.
Easier.
Soderini had seen that he was doing this sculpture and was like, you know what, this giant figure that you're doing, it looks well, but the nose is not right. And Michelangelo had noticed that it's not necessarily what he was doing was wrong. It was just the perspective that Soderini was seeing it from. So instead of fighting, what it says is that, and this is on page 71, he picked up his chisel as well as a bit of marble dust that lay on the planks.
Mhm.
And then he started to tap lightly with the chisel, letting bits of dust as he guided his hand little by little.
Mhm.
But did he actually change something? No. But interestingly enough, when he asked him, does it look better now? He was like, I like it better. You've made it come alive. But he didn't make
Yes.
a difference. It reminds me a lot of like the work I do
Uh-huh.
because sometimes you go into, let's just, people's residences, apartments, houses, whatever, and people think they know more than you, or they've done it because they live here. They're like, yes, this always does this. And then you're looking at the problem, and the problem the problem isn't there.
Hmm.
It's like kind of in their mind, in a sense, you could put it that way. But instead of arguing with the tenant or with that person, you know what? I'm going to take a look. No problem. And then you start to take a look, and you start making a few taps, just tapping, boom, boom, boom,
Uh,
tapping the pipe. You drilled nothing with the drill, right? You just make a sound. Whatever the job is, right?
okay.
And you're like, oh, you know what? I was able to see the problem. I tightened this up. Everything works perfect now. You didn't do absolutely nothing. But to give that person some peace of mind, and instead of wasting your energy in arguing with, no, you're wrong. There's nothing there. I am the expert. As a matter of fact, I studied for this. I have the license. You didn't go to school for this.
Uh-huh.
Like, You're a white collar. I'm a blue collar. How are you telling me? Like, or I have years in experience. Instead of
Uh,
doing that, you just listen. You tap a few things, touch up, make sure everything's working. I found your problem. You were right. Everything's fixed now. But you did absolutely nothing. You walk away. They're happy. And then that tenant will come up to you later on and be like, ever since you did that, I've never had a problem. I'm like, I know.
wow.
I know. It's part of my expertise, you know.
Has that actually happened to you, or were you like mentioning an example?
No, that's actually happened. Not only to me, but to a lot of coworkers of mine that are shoopers as well.
Yeah.
Usually, funny thing, it usually happens usually with older folks, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a normal thing, right? Happens with older folks that this and that is happening. Okay, no problem. We'll take a look, right? That's literally all you have to say, and obviously making a little bit of sound, a little bit of noise just gives them that that secureness that you're fixing something
That you're
and
doing
then you're
something about it.
right, you're making something happen. But you in reality, as the expert that knows what's going on, knows that
Mm-hmm.
nothing is going on, but they don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, but it gives them like that security that something was done.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, just like Michelangelo, just to not cause problems, to not hurt the other person's ego, to not waste an ounce of energy. I know you're wrong, but to keep the peace, I'm just gonna do a little tactic in a sense.
Yeah.
And listen, we're good to go. So that's what it kind of reminded me, because even in that interpretation of the story of Michelangelo,
Mm-hmm.
at the end it says, "No one is offended, and your point is proven."
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? When I was reading this story, this thing he did, it reminded me of magic, like sleight of hand. Because what he did was
Really?
really sleight of hand. He took some
Oh
dust
yeah,
into his hand. I could just see him, and he's like this, and then like as he's like hitting it lightly, he like lets
yeah. I
go,
just let it go. Yeah. Uh huh.
and then the dust falls down, and then because Michelangelo was just saying from your perspective or the angle you're looking at the nose, it's not the right one. So he has him come closer, and he sees the dust. He's like, all right, now that's perfect. So yeah, 100%, Ron, you're 100% right. But I guess my question for you then would be,
Hmm.
do you agree with this statement 100%, or do you think that maybe there are moments, right, where you could win someone through words? And if there is, how would you do it, or when would that be appropriate, do you think?
When I could win someone through words.
Because he says here, win through actions, which again, I'm agreeing with. This is, I think most of the time, this is true. Win through words, win through actions, never through argument. So, when do you think you can actually win someone through words? Not argument, but through words. When do you think, or maybe you have an experience or a thought on that?
Mm, I feel like you have to win someone through words when you're caught in a lie.
Which is the reversal that he does talk about.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
So sorry, I didn't want to jump into that.
No, 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 that's
Uh,
fine. If you want to talk about that, and then maybe I'll mention something about it. Uh, so yeah, you want to talk about the reversal
uh,
or
let's
something about it,
see.
or maybe a thought about it?
Let me see. The most powerful goes into
The reversal's on
symbol.
page 74 and 5. 74 and 5.
Well, yeah. The reversal of things is to verbal arguments has one vital use in the realm of power to distract and cover your tracks when you are practicing deception or caught in a lie. Why? Well, the reason I said that, because that's also like obviously in my past life when I was a bad person,
Oh, okay.
because
Yeah.
I'm not anymore, right?
Amen.
Um, um, we all used to lie, right? So sometimes when you're caught in a lie, you're like, oh shit,
Uh-huh.
how do I get out of this?
Uh-huh.
There's no way to get out of it through action, because you've
Uh-huh.
been caught already in a sense,
Uh-huh.
right? So you staying quiet isn't gonna help either.
No, it makes it worse.
Right.
Yeah.
So what you have to do at that moment is just you gotta double down, right? And that's convincing someone through words and maybe use a like emotion, like Robert Greene also mentions, right? The more emotional and certain you appear, the less likely it seems that you are aligned, right? And
Yes.
and like every circumstance would differentiate. Like sometimes you can even go into a little bit of crying, right? Because you become very manipulative.
Uh-huh.
Something a lot of women do,
Oh,
but
wow. You have experience in this realm?
very lots.
Wow.
Um,
Uh,
but no, because it could be a form of manipulation
of course, crying,
because
yes, it can.
because that's what you're doing to win someone over in a sense because you've been caught in a lie. Therefore,
Mhm,
for that person to feel some type of empathy for you
mhm,
for your lie, you just
mhm.
have to start crying and be like, the only reason I did it is because I was going through something, and then
Wow, I thought you were about to cry right now.
and- So yeah, I think well, obviously that is the reversal, but that would be the moments when um actions aren't going to help you at the moment, so you need to
Mhm.
use your words.
Interesting. But like it sounds like this reversal though is saying that if you want to win someone, because this is like the worst case scenario. You're getting caught in a lie, so now you're gonna have to speak, and maybe get emotional, argue in a smart way, so you can convince the person to get out of it. But that's like the worst case scenario, though, right? You're gonna win someone through your words or through an argument because you got caught. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? So, like in my case, um, I think there are moments other than being caught in a lie. I think there are moments where you could win someone through words. And I think
Is it
it's
love?
it's love. No, definitely. I don't. I mean, maybe love. I wasn't thinking that, but maybe. But I was thinking of maybe you thinking of using the Socratic method, right?
Explain.
You know the famous philosopher Socrates, right?
Socrates. Yes, they call me that all the
Oh wow, nice. Wow, we're meeting the real life Socrates,
time. No,
or
no, the reborn version. The reborn version.
the reincarnation of
Mm,
Socrates. Got you.
It's not that good. It's not that good.
But basically, he was known, right? Because he had like different students and stuff. But he was known. He was like this Greek philosopher who came up with this ability to ask deep logical questions that can basically create self doubt in the person without offending them or without like arguing. So it's like
Okay.
he knew how to ask questions in a gentle, calm way to get the other person to think and to get to a conclusion that he was trying to get you to get to. But we need to use your own thinking skills so I'm going to ask you questions, let's say, that are going to get you to really doubt or really figure out the foundation or the belief of why you believe something, and then maybe even make you realize like, hey, I could be wrong. But it's easier to get someone to get to win them like that if you make them think that and you don't tell them how to think, right? So
So use an
uh,
indirect way.
yes, it is indirect, but you're asking gentle questions, right? So like and it avoids people getting like defensive. And I've read different ways on how to do this because there are books that teach you the Socratic method, right? But like for example, one of the first things that you could ask someone is like basically clarifying the person's belief, right? So let's say like we're I don't know, we're talking about I don't know about like rich people all rich people are greedy and they're bad, let's say, right? So then like the first step you would say like, hey, okay, so from my understanding, you're saying that all rich people are greedy and selfish. Is that correct? Now, that's the first. I'm clarifying your belief. I'm just reiterating what I think I just heard. You tell me, yes, that's exactly what I believe. Okay, great. Then you can ask them like for evidence. Okay, so what makes you say this? Or like, did you Did you go through a personal experience? Did you read about this? Who taught you this? What's your evidence? What's the foundation of this belief? And again, I'm not attacking. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay, you believe this. Why do you believe this? Okay. Then maybe after that, you can then challenge their assumption in a gentle way, right? Where you can start to introduce an alternate view of what they're saying. So you could say, like, okay, so you believe that all rich people are greedy and selfish because of what you read and based on this author, and you saw this and you went through an experience when you were 12. Okay. Now, do you think maybe there could be another explanation on why you believe this? And again, so there's steps to it, right? And then you can go into a lot more detail, but you see where I'm going, right? Then you can kind of start to make them realize that, hey, maybe your belief is flawed in this way. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing it in a very gentle, as you mentioned, indirect way by using questions to make you think and give me the answers so I can hear your thinking, your process. So, me personally, I think if you're trying to win someone through an argument, you reassure them, like, listen, I'm not here to fight with you. I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to tell you what to do. And then you go into the Socratic method, you could probably also win people like that. But
Oh
then
yeah, most people.
maybe, but I will say this: if someone doesn't know how to articulate or because I've done this before, and it's happened to me a couple times where like I'm like on the second step of it, and like they kind of realize like they don't know where they got the evidence or they can't give me any evidence.
Yeah, yeah,
They're like I just feel it. So I'm like
yeah.
okay, and then and then if you make them realize, so just because you have a feeling, are all feelings correct? It's true you have the feeling, but are all feelings correct? And what? And like some people will tell you, "Oh, you're asking me a gotcha question." No, I'm not asking you a gotcha question. I'm just asking you, tell me, do you believe that all feelings are correct? Most people are going to say no to that because it's true. That's not true. What? For example, and I know that this is extreme, but I always say if I have an attraction, a feel for kids, is that correct? Of
Right.
course not. It's a real feeling, but is that
Yeah.
correct? No, of course not. I want to fucking murder my ex-girlfriend. You're feeling that. Is that a correct feeling? No, it's not a correct feel. Okay then. But you see where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, you have to have a lot of patience with that, especially with people that don't,
Yes.
um, provide any evidence
Yes.
behind any statements, because sometimes you feel like, it is a valid way. I use it all the time. I'm sure
Uh-huh.
you as well, right? Where
The
you're
what?
like,
The,
you
the
start
what?
the um, the method that you just
Oh,
described,
yeah, yeah, okay, okay. Uh-huh.
where in a sense, you're breaking it down. We're like,
Uh-huh.
okay, I want to know where you got this from. Uh, and I want to assure you that obviously I'm not here to, judge you or make you feel some type of way. I just want to hear where you're coming from. Now, and then we start breaking it down, right?
Hmm.
It's just, it just reminds me that sometimes you need to have a lot of patience, to like break down these questions, dumb it down in a sense. I don't want to use that word, but it's the first word that came to mind. Um, to be able to get to someone indirectly, because usually debate consists of direct.
Hmm.
What do you believe? What do I believe? Right? And maybe you're not here to change your mind, like you said previously. Maybe it's just for the audience, or maybe it's just to state what you believe in.
Uh-huh.
Um, which is gives us a reason on why sometimes actions, you know, are stronger than words. But in moments like these, is where words could play a big factor
Hmm.
in changing someone's mind, or
Correct.
in changing their habits,
Hmm.
or at least making them think
Hmm.
about what they're doing
Hmm.
or how they're going about things. Some things you can't prove through actions, right? If someone's coming through you to some advice, what do you think I should do? Well, at that moment, you can't really prove them through actions, especially if you can't really relate to what they're telling you or you haven't
Hmm.
gone through it. But from your similar experience, or from your belief system, or whatever moral code you follow, you could give a certain piece of advice through words.
True.
or through questions, making them think, offering a piece of advice. Therefore, those words can be powerful, and you don't have to you don't have to show something through action at that, at that moment.
Yeah, 100%. I'll agree with you on that one. Okay.
Yeah, I also feel like this. I know we didn't cover it, but has a lot of good, interesting stories as well that we didn't read, obviously, because there's just so many stories he talked about
Yeah.
in in this chapter. But it is great when it comes about winning through your actions and never through an argument, and you can apply it to this in a lots of aspects of life, in relationships between parents and spouses, brotherhood, friendships,
Mhm.
everywhere, even in the work environment.
Mhm.
But let's move on to Law 10.
All right. Should I read it?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
All right. Law 10. Infection. Avoid the unhappy and unlucky.
Oh my God, I think this has become my favorite.
Wow. Everyone, if he's rubbing his hands, get ready. And the judgment says you can die from someone else's misery. Emotional states are as infectious as diseases. You may feel you are helping the drowning man, but you're only precipitating your own disaster. The unfortunate sometimes draw misfortune on themselves. They will also draw it on you. Associate with the happy and fortunate instead.
Wow,
That's it, guys. Thank you so much
that's
for being
it.
here. That's it. We don't need to talk about this. All right,
Screw
Owen.
this
So,
chapter.
so I guess my question to you is why is this your favorite law? And why are you so excited to talk about this? Like, what is something like from this chapter, like a phenomenal piece of advice that you would give, like, to someone that you're speaking to about this?
Stay away from las tóxicas, bro.
Wow,
Now,
we should make a shirt like that.
just
Avoid las
quote this.
tóxicas.
Quote it. No, no, on a serious note. Well, actually, this is a toxica, but
Cool.
what I mean for my non-Hispanic people, toxic
Oh wow.
women. Just because the transgression of the law happens to talk about a woman. This
Hmm.
is non-gender specific.
Okay.
Either male or female. It could apply to both.
Okay.
Uh, but she just did it better, so we have to talk about the women. So
Oh
sorry.
god, they're gonna clip this in 10 years. I don't. And they're gonna like, oh really?
Ah, you're misogynist. It's okay. Well, uh, for now, I believe it has become one of my favorite chapters, if not my favorite, just because it is so, so true.
Mm,
Infection, avoid the unhappy and the unlucky.
mm,
Why do you want to avoid these people? Why? Because it is so infectious. It is so powerful. It passes on.
mhm,
I think we talked about this either in the previous episode or the one before that, how you're some of the five people you hang out with the most, right? Because good traits, as if bad traits, could um
influence?
influence you, right? Or be a part of you now. Something that never was now is
Mhm,
because of the people you surround yourself with. Well, Lola Montes is a great example of this. Why? Because she had a dancing career, if I'm not wrong.
mhm,
And you can notice in each, because they don't only give one story about her, they give multiple stories. I think it's about five men that she was with and one previously that she was with, because she never actually got divorced.
mhm.
Read the story, great story. Um
Which
in
page is
where
this on the book? Which page is this?
this is page 77 and 78, in where they go about the book, and I'm not going to go through every um
Example.
story with her, but
Mhm.
just to go, you know just to summarize it in a sense, she was able to capture one of the guys with her bare breasts exposed.
Yes, I remember this.
Right.
Okay.
And she would do things quote unquote by accident, but actually they were done on purpose. It was to gather the attention of somebody, right?
Mhm,
To get at somebody,
mhm.
Now, why do we say that she's an unlucky person? It's because every person that she happened to be with, something bad happened,
Mm,
right? Um, Either their career started to go down, either
mm.
they lost the job, either a
They
lot of
died.
people they died. Yes, one of them died. Um, and she prospered a lot off this help. It
Mhm.
says in page 78, the end of the first paragraph, she, oh my God, I cannot pronounce, catapulated to fame and fortune overnight,
Mm,
extremely quick. So, what do I see this as? I see this as poison,
mm,
right? Be very careful with the people you hang out with, because her being a dancer and not having any knowledge when it came to policies or politics and stuff like that. She one time was with a person and she was started to advise, which is specifically Ludwig, on policy. And that's when a lot of people started to, rebel and be like, what's wrong? Like, and not only she damaged her reputation throughout the men that she started being with, they themselves damaged their reputation by being with her as well. Right. So, what is the point of this story?
uh-huh. What's the point of, yeah, I don't, what's the point of the story?
Never trust the hoe. Oh my God, let me
Uh-huh.
stop. I'm gonna get canceled. Um, Reason why,
Uh-huh.
because I might deviate a little bit here off topic, but I'm
All
gonna
right,
come
go.
back. Because and what annoyed me the most when I read this damn book was all these men that she married, and then we go to the last page, not the last page, the last paragraph of the transgression of the law.
Uh-huh.
It's at page 79, and I'm gonna read it to you guys.
Oh God, yes.
At the age of 41, Lola gave away her clothes and finery and turned to God. She
Okay.
toured America, lecturing on religious topics, dressed in white and wearing a halo like, a halo like white headgear. She died 2 years later in 1861. That
Why does
being
this
said,
bother you so much? Why does this
it
bother you so
bothers me
much?
so much because listen, I'm not saying I don't want to get into religious stuff. I'm not saying God is not a forgiving God and God won't give you a second chance. Either way, she had many chances. But you know, have you ever heard of I've seen this a lot on different podcasts, maybe on different on social media platforms and stuff like that, where I'm a reborn,
A reborn Christian?
a reborn Christian, or I've even heard of reborn virgin, all that nonsense, right?
I've never heard of a reborn virgin.
Well, then you haven't seen enough social media.
Yeah, I probably have not. You're right.
Abstain from that, please, because it will it will ruin your way of viewing things. But yes, so that reminded me a lot of people that say those type of things
Uh-huh.
and turn to God and then become this, like,
Like
this
innocent? No.
this angel, like,
Oh.
you know excuse me,
Uh,
everyone's past matters, right?
uh-huh.
So that's why I'm saying this. But like everyone's past matters, non-gender related,
Uh-huh.
you have to avoid the unhappy, the unlucky.
Uh-huh.
And whatever she was bringing to her life was a lot of unlucky situations to all these men.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because her power was beyond sexual. I understand she showed her breast to one guy and won her over, but her power was beyond her sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
because she kept, in the interpretation, it talks about how she forced on her character, and that just grasped all of her lovers,
Mm-hmm.
and they were sucked into it because they felt confused, upset, but the strength of emotions she stirred up also made them feel more alive. So these were some
Mm-hmm.
lonely ass men that didn't understand. um so, lesson learned: when you suspect something about somebody,
Uh-huh.
don't argue it, don't try to defend it, just believe it. When someone tells you who they are, believe it.
Okay.
What do you think?
I'm going to say this. I'm
That
going to
you
say
agree with me. Excellent.
excellent. No, I definitely agree with you. The thing is, I don't think these men were lonely though. They were not lonely because a lot of these men were successful, right? They could have any woman or most women, let's say. But what I understood from the interpretation, and then I actually found a study that I want to share something with you that I know that when I tell you this, you're going to be astounded by the study that
We'll
came out
see.
of, that came out in the British Medical Journal, right? But basically, as you read in the interpretation, page 79, they were so captivated by her because and this is the key, the men felt alive again. A lot of the times, people, they may have a routine and their lives are boring. I do this, I do this. And again, I'm not against routine. I think routine can be very good for you, mental health wise,
I
strength
agree.
wise, a lot of stuff. But your life can't be boring. If your life is boring, you might get into depression. You won't experience new things, and you just stick to something, right? But
Yeah.
when this woman came out of nowhere and made them feel things, right? And the human
She's probably
experience. What?
she's probably extremely feminine
Maybe
and
extremely
beautiful,
feminine,
maybe.
beautiful, but besides that, she probably made them think of things they never thought of, or perspectives, or how to look at life, or enjoy things that they never enjoyed, or they never thought they would enjoy. When you meet that person that just like so exciting and like, you're happy with them, but then you're sad with them, you're helping them. It's like your emotion, it's like a roller coaster, and it's like so much dopamine's releasing oxytocin, but then it's like I want to
Yeah.
help them. They make you, that person makes you feel like the hero. You save them. It's like all these things. It's like, and it comes out of nowhere. It's like you're addicted. The person becomes like heroin. You become addicted to the person because of
Yeah.
the emotional roller coaster they make you go through, right? And I think that's what really got to them. But her instability was infectious and it killed them or made them go broke, and then she would leave them and go on to the next, right?
Yeah.
And I
It's
think what
crazy.
bothers you is her hypocrisy. It's like, really, you do all these things and then you go to God, like, really, and like, do we really believe you, right? So I definitely understand what you're saying.
Hmm.
So I found this study,
Okay.
and I found it and I was like,
It's
I never,
phenomenal.
capital P, yes. I didn't even know this was a thing. So I wrote it down here. There's a study called The Dynamic Spread of Happiness in a Large Social Network. It was published in the British Medical Journal, and it was a study that began in 1948 and tracked over 12,000 people in a small town in the state of Massachusetts. So far, so good.
Okay.
What they did is they found out that happiness, sadness, obesity, smoking, and other behaviors can come, and they can spread like a social contagious disease through networks of friends, family, coworkers, and friends of friends. So you can increase your obesity, your happiness, your sadness through a coworker, friend, your friend's friends, long family members who you're not close with. Now, how is this possible, right? So, for example, this is what they found when it comes
Okay.
to negative and positive emotions, and they did math on this. For example, if your friend becomes happy, your happiness goes up by 25%. If your friend's friend is happy or sad, your happiness or sadness will go up 10%. If your friend's friend becomes happier or sadder or more sad, it will increase or decrease by 5.6%. And in the study, they talk about how they got to these numbers. I'm not a mathematician or someone who's an expert in like as a what's the word, a statistician or mathematician,
Hmm.
but it was fascinating because what the study was really showing is, as you mentioned earlier, whoever you surround yourself, the five closest people, you will become them. This study is showing it's even more than that. A lot, your social network is affected even by three people away from you, your friend you that you probably don't even know, right? Because we as humans, we mirror each other, right? The vibe, the aura, it can be transferred. So right? This is why if you're hanging out with someone, and look, if your friend, your best friend gets happier, your happiness goes up 25%, unless you're a jealous person and you're just jealous, right? But also about sadness. And you can even be affected by two or three people away from you that you've never met, but they can still influence you through your friend. So imagine someone who's unlucky, unstable, tóxico, tóxica. They're gonna, they are a disease. They're like a parasite. They're feeding off of you. But because the way they make you feel like the hero, like you can, and usually we as humans, we want to be helpful. We want to reciprocate. We want to be there for people because we're just social creatures. We want to do these things, and because people make us feel like the hero, or these emotional turmoil, these roller coasters,
Hmm.
we're like addicted to them. And a lot of times people who are toxic, they're very nice, or they can be funny, but these
It's very addicting.
qualities, it's addicting. So yeah. So what do you think?
I think it's extremely true. Obviously, the quote talks about the five people. Why? Because that's what affects you the most, right? That's what you're gonna pick up more often because it's just a more direct
Uh-huh.
influence, right? But you're 100% right. Or I think that study holds some type of truth
Mm,
because either way, this person can't be passing you on a positive trait because that's a person you surround yourself with. If they decide to surround themselves with someone negative or someone that brings you people down, or just it's a pessimist
mhm,
overall in many qualities, that's going to pass on to your friend,
mhm,
and then it's going to pass on to you. It's like a chain of effects.
mhm.
It's like cause and effect in a sense, right? Where like
Correct.
it starts off here, but that doesn't mean it stops. We talked about generational trauma, right? It
Yes.
just goes down through the family again and again and again because it doesn't get solved, or no one puts a stop to it, no one addresses it. While this could be the same thing, might be a little bit harder to tell, but because your friend could be hanging out, and I'm giving an example. Your friend could be hanging out with no one, in a sense, or everyone positive, and all of a sudden they have a new friend, and
Yes.
that new person that you weren't aware of starts putting that into that your friend, and
Yeah.
then that starts passing on to you as well.
Hmm.
So that's why it's extremely important to keep your circle tight. you know I'm not saying you have to know every single thing, but at least whatever you are aware of, pay attention to it.
Mm.
you know because I've had experiences where, listen, I have a friend, and I might love this friend, I might respect this friend might not done anything bad to me, um but this friend hangs out with someone that I know that isn't going to bring me any type of positivity or success,
Mhm,
or isn't going to bring me any type of value, right? Because
mhm.
we don't hang out with people that don't add value to our lives. So
Correct.
if this other person knowingly, at least in my case, doesn't isn't going to bring any value, therefore I abstain from hanging out with that person, but I do see my friend hanging out with that person, it's not for me to make an enemy out of that friend,
Mm.
because everyone is going to do whatever they want. In a sense, we're like, everyone has a different experience, everybody. But at least me, if I want to protect my energy and that chain that can be passed on because of the influence that person can bring onto my friend,
Mm.
I prefer to, let's just keep a distance,
Mm.
right?
Smart.
Not necessarily directly. It could be done indirectly too. Like, now
Mm.
we're not hanging out as often. Oh, you know what? I'm busy. I got stuff to do. Um, and I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen in my life. I've seen it happen with other people's lives. There's just certain people that are unhappy, that are unlucky, that bring all those negative vibes, that it's just better to stay away from.
And why do you think people become like this? I mean, I could think of a couple things potentially, like psychological stuff, but why do you think people are so toxic or unhappy and unlucky, and they bring the room down, the bad vibes, the aura, everything you said? Why do you think some people are like that?
Uh, hmm. I have a question for you afterwards too.
No
But
thanks. Okay,
no,
okay, go.
no, stop it.
Okay, go.
Uh, why do I think people are like that?
Yeah, in your opinion, why do you think?
I think the answer could be complex, but it could be very simple at the same time. Where
I agree.
it's the way they're raised, or
Mhm.
it's something they developed.
Interesting. So like if they were raised like in a toxic home or like parents
If
were
they
very
were,
pessimistic, right?
yeah. So this has to do with what I just mentioned previously about generational trauma.
Yeah.
That's going to pass on through every family. It gets to finally your side of the family, and
Mhm.
you could pass that on, not necessarily to other family members,
Mhm.
to friendships and stuff like that, right? It's a continuous thing. So if you're raised like that and it's never addressed, people are like that. Or I guess it could be developed.
Mhm.
Uh, subjective experiences, unfortunately, trauma
Mhm.
and stuff like that. So that's the way I would see it. But I do have a question in,
Mhm.
obviously, because I've been with these type of people, and I'm sure you have as well.
Yes.
You've been able to experience it face to face live.
Yeah.
Are these, and I don't want to make it sound like bad, because obviously a lot of these people have been through unfortunate situations
Mhm.
or traumas, stuff that out of their control,
Potentially, yeah.
right? Are they worth helping? Reason I'm asking that, because the author says don't help them.
Yes.
He says don't help them. Um, obviously, he does mention that some people are born beyond their circumstances, something they can't control,
Yeah.
but some people are not,
Yes.
right? And this is just uh, something they draw upon themselves, because this is just they bring it. Do you think those people are worth helping? Do you think there's the exception? Obviously, I believe there's the exception to everything, but do you think these people are worth helping? And if so, how?
Yes. I think I think I would tend to agree with the author. Don't get involved. But let's say
I
you
had a
do
feeling.
want. But let's say you do want to help. I think you could do a couple things to kind of test the waters and see where they're at mentally, internally, to see if they're going to do any change, right? Like for example, you could tell in their language, are they are they venting or are they unlucky and unsad? And
Hmm.
when they talk about it, are they just trying to vent or complain or are they trying to find a solution, right?
Okay.
And you could always tell by how they're speaking and asking, right? Or maybe if they do ask and you give them good actionable advice and you're willing to help them, but you always notice that there's an excuse or then they're not doing anything or they just don't listen, then I think you gave them a chance already. You tried and you dropped them because you're right, it's not worth it. Unless you're like their mental health therapist or their psychologist, right? But most of us are not qualified in any of those two realms. So right? So you don't do it. So I would notice if are they solution oriented? Are they trying to figure out a way to get out of this? Do they have a track record of maybe like when they were in trouble or something was bothering them or there was something up? Did they try to fix it or were they just complainers? Right? Gary V says something. I mean, he says basically, you know, Gary V says, listen, if you are complaining that you don't have enough money, but all you do is on the weekends is play Fortnite or right or play GTA or black or right, what's the name of the game? Black Ops, right? But you're
Yeah.
complaining that you don't have enough money, then don't complain then. Shut up because you're complaining, but you're not going to do anything about it, right? So the same thing here. If they're complaining, but there's no solution, they're not trying anything, and you tried already, and you give them avenues and resources, then I think it's not worth it. There's too much to
Mm.
live for. There's too much for you to do, right? You cannot, your life cannot revolve around them. And I think also like you can by a conversation, you can tell how bad they are. Like, are they really helpless, right? have they developed like deep rooted negative core behaviors or core mentalities that it's just not going to go away? Because sadly, as you mentioned, a lot of people go through a lot of trauma or rejection, and you know what happens? They fail so much. There comes a point where it's like they stop trying and they're just passive, and they get into chronic depression and they're always sad
Mm-hmm.
because they've tried so much or they've had so much trauma, and let's say they've tried but they fail so much that they get to that point. And when you get to that point, there's a part in the brain called the amygdala. It's like a little part in our brain
Yeah.
where you know, like the fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
The fight or flight. So like when there's like something scary or dangerous situation, it'll light up, right? To say, hey, run away or be careful. But when you go through a lot of trauma and rejection, that same part of the brain lights up. And when that lights up too many times, your logical part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is like around here,
Yeah.
the reasoning part of the brain goes down. So you become more anxious, more hyper vigilant, right? So, but honestly, me personally, unless the person comes up to me or I listen in their language that they actually want to make a difference and they just don't know how to, which is fine, I will try. But if I see after one or two times max, I'm still gonna be friends with them, but I'm just not gonna hang out as much with them or be too much with them because I don't want to be infected by their social disease or their unluckiness, their unhappiness, instability. So yeah,
Do you think there's a time frame?
that's a good question. I'm not sure. Maybe. Um,
Because
I don't
there's
know.
the
Yeah.
there's I've googled this before. You know, they said there's a certain amount of days to take away like a bad habit in a sense.
Is it like 21? No.
Uh I forget,
Okay.
but I think it's like 2 months or more.
Okay.
Obviously, not everyone is 2 months. I believe very rarely people. I believe a small amount of people actually could change something in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the range is much bigger. But I'm just wondering if there's is there like a time frame, or maybe you give it a personal time frame. I guess if they don't show me in a certain amount of time, that could be a month or two, that they don't change the way they think or the way they operating, then that's when I give up.
Mm. I mean, maybe what you could do is like, hey, listen, like you give the advice, say, hey, these are the resources, these are the things I think you should do, and here's the evidence. Let's say, right, and then you
Right.
tell them like, listen, I'll be back in a month, or let's reconnect in a month, and let's see how much you did. Either you say it directly or you indirectly say, all right, I'll be back, or like we'll catch up soon. Come back in about a month and see what happens. If you see something going, great. If not, then maybe give it another couple weeks or a month, and then see again. And if nothing, or there's more
And,
progress, that can
and,
give you kind of a handle.
and I believe it all depends too on how close you are to this person. Are you constantly seeing them? Are you not? Because then
Yeah,
you could see what they're doing, what they're doing,
correct. Yeah.
right? Got you. So, and then this has a lot of application to the previous chapter, and where actions, show louder than words. So don't tell me, like, kind of prove it to me. If I guess if you're seeking for this help,
Mm,
right, of
yeah.
change, right?
Yes.
So,
If again,
right,
if they're doing that, yeah. Um,
very
yeah.
sorry, no, yeah, no, go, go, go.
Another part I liked too was the in this chapter,
Yeah, yeah, I was looking at it right now too.
is on page 79, right? Where
Never mind.
is the bottom of keys to power,
Uh-huh.
right? It says, but there are others who are not born to misfortune or unhappiness, but who draw it upon themselves by their destructive actions and unsettling effect on others. Right?
Mhm.
Um, it would be a great thing if we could raise them up, change their patterns. But now this is for me the most important part. The reason is simple. Humans are extremely susceptible to the moods, emotions, and even the ways of thinking of those whom they spend their time. Because again, no, I know people who are like who say, I'm not susceptible to influence. I can never be influenced. I'm so strong mentally and physically. No one can change me. That is not true. We humans, we mirror each other a lot directly and indirectly. Our emotions, our thoughts, we do it all the time. because
Yeah.
we're social creatures. That's just been proven by sociology and psychology, right? So if that's the case, the reason why toxic people so many times can hook in so many is because they can influence our moods and our way of thinking. They can make us feel like the hero. And a lot of times, if your life is boring or if your life has no purpose, but then someone makes your emotions go up and down, you feel like you have purpose now. You're like, wow, this person made me feel happy and sad, and like
Yeah.
I'm helping them, but they push back. It's like, no, it's my mission. I gotta help them. It must be a sign from God. I mean, listen, maybe it is a sign from God for you to help someone, right? Or maybe it's not a sign from God, and you're just reading into it. That's also possible. You're
Possible.
you want to interpret what you're seeing in front of you, right? So that is why these toxic people, and especially like in relationships, una tóxica, un tóxico, it's kind of funny that a lot of the times these people are very good looking. So they're good looking. They make you feel some type of way, like with the emotions, the emotion roller coaster. So it's like, wow, this person is so special. They're so good looking, but also they got so much complexity to them, and
Wow.
wow, let me change this person, let me help them, right? And listen, those emotions do come up from a good place. They do, they really do, they really do. And I'm not saying that all people who are toxic or toxica, they don't eventually stop being toxic, and they might change because you did help them. That also does exist, it does happen. But according to Robert Greene, the chance of that happening is very low, right? Unless you're like, I don't know, like God or like a prophet, and you can read hearts and minds, then maybe. But like or like maybe you are a con artist, maybe, I don't know. But it's just, it's gonna be difficult. It really is gonna be difficult, and they're gonna suck you in, and it's just, you're gonna be enveloped in that world, and it's gonna be so hard to leave. Any thoughts?
No, I 100% agree. This law is great because it it mentions, as you were mentioning, that the people that you surround yourself are with is extremely critical. Don't
Yes.
waste your time and energy on them.
Hmm.
It even says in page 80 how how can you protect yourself against such insidious viruses?
Hmm.
The answer lies in judging people on the effects they have on the world, and not on the reasons they give for their problems.
Oh,
And
that's deep.
that's extremely deep. Let me read it again. The answer lies in judging people on the effects they have on the world, and not on the reasons they give for their problems.
Mm.
Excellent. Infectors can be recognized by the misfortune they draw on themselves, their turbulent past, their long line of broken relationships, their unstable careers. Reminds me of so many people, and the very force of their character,
Mm.
which sweeps you up and makes you lose your reason. Be forewarned by these signs of infector.
Oh, an
Learn
infector,
to
yeah.
learn to see the disconnect in their eye. Do not take pity. Is this is giving you all the signs? Don't be with someone who's trying to play victim, who's
Mhm.
always giving an excuse, because all those negative qualities are constantly going to be affecting you, just like positive ones do, right? I
Yes.
wrote a note here where it says something is better than actual therapy, which is actually on page 81. Um, it's telling you to, like, if you're a gloomy person, to, you should gravitate to the cheerful. You
Mhm.
know, if you're prone to isolation, force yourself to befriend the gregarious. What? Yeah.
Where's that?
That is
Uh, oh,
the second to last.
the gregarious.
The gregarious, right?
Yeah.
Never associate with those who share your defects. They will reinforce everything that holds you back. Only create
Mhm.
associations with positive affinities. Make this a rule of life, and you will benefit more than all of the therapy in the world.
Yeah.
That's why I said that's 100% better than any type of therapy,
Mm.
right? Than the music, because music can be therapy, than sitting across with somebody and speaking about your horrible life. Um, with a psychologist, because all of that could be solved in a sense with the people that you're around with, right? You're with cheerful people, positive people, people that don't share the same defects as you, bring out the best out of you, you bring out the best out of them. It's the best.
Mm,
Reason why, because at the end of the day, also Robert Greene talks about that there is no reversal to this.
mm,
The application is universal. Therefore, you can never underestimate the dangers of infection.
mm,
It's it's just extremely contagious.
mm.
Extremely. I
And
don't know what
yeah, tell me.
I don't know what you think about that.
You know, well, based on what you said, I do think therapy can help with, I think, with more extreme cases. But
No.
that's the oh no, okay. But that's the extreme. But I think but that's the extreme. But like, yes, that's why there's that famous expression that opposites attract each other. And that's not always necessarily sexually or romantic wise, but like he's kind of saying that. If you are a gloomy, sad person, find someone who's always happy and positive. Because you're right, some of their qualities is going to affect you. And in the long term, you're going to get influenced by them. That's why, like, a lot of the times, a lot of these people who become millionaires, they always say, go to the networking events or go befriend rich people. You don't have that, right? You're not rich yet. Go be friends with them. Go hang out with them. So you learn what they do. You
That's true.
connect, right? And um, and that's what you must do. So he's saying, you know, and when I read this, I think for normal people, this is actually harder than expected. I'll tell you why. Most people, when they grow up, they stick to their friends that they knew from high school, middle school, maybe at the local church, right, the
Comfortability.
synagogue, and they're comfortable. And they just hang out with their circle. They hang out with their circle, right? Um, and it's comfortable. But many times those circles are toxic. There's a lot of unlucky people. Again, I'm not saying everyone, but there's a lot of unlucky people who are not positive, people who want to bring you down, jealousy, all these negative things. That's why um there's many other reasons why, but one of the big reasons I'm barely friends with anyone I grew up with because I saw a lot of that. Also, to be fair, my father was very good at like telling me, hey, this person's like this person's like this. They're jealous. They're so negative. And I listened to him, and I was like, I don't want to associate myself. And I found other different circles that I wasn't raised with, that I felt like did help me grow in many aspects. And I'll always mention this one person, who again I haven't spoken to in quite a while. He moved away, and Steven Patzer. You know I think you remember meeting him a couple
Yeah.
times. Uh, Someone that I definitely would have never met in my circle growing up. Met him. He was someone so different from what I was raised with, and I was attracted to his personality and to his thoughts, and I learned so much from him that has affected me, influenced me to this day. That man, Steven Patzer, right? He lives in Florida now, and I'm in Colorado. But he did so much for me, right? I didn't want, and I love what he said here. Judge people on the effects they have on the world, and not on the reasons they give for their problems. Now, again, I don't think he also means like if your friends are not changing the world like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, screw them. No, I don't think that's what he's saying.
Obviously, yeah.
I mean, you could read it that way, like, oh, what effect do they have on the world, right?
Right. They don't have to have, they don't have to be famous or have a podcast or
No, no. Like
like just having
I
a
don't
just
bet at.
yeah. They can just be
Uh,
having a positive effect on their family. That's it.
Correct. So it's like, okay, basically saying judge their actions. What are they doing that's like giving back, right? What do they do? Giving charity again, and this is my interpretation. Giving charity, helping the family, right? Good, doing a career. He's hustling. He's trying to make more money to for this or for that. He's got this amazing hobby, and he's doing this for a museum. Again, there's so many ways to impact the world locally, macro level, micro. Like there's so much. It's infinity. Like I can't even. There's probably so many ways I can't even think of. So I think it's like judge what they're doing, but if all they do is voice complaints and like, oh, I couldn't do this because I'm Hispanic, or I couldn't do that because I just didn't have that. I was raised in a bad home. My mom beat the crap out of me, which is probably maybe a lot of those things are true. But if you have an
But
excuse for everything, right? And as he says, and they keep bringing the misfortune they have on themselves, and you could see their track record, they're unstable in so many ways, be aware of that person. He says quarantine from them. Quarantine, right?
Quarantine is the solution.
Like what we did in COVID-19, right?
It
Wait,
wasn't real. I'm joking.
Oh no, conspiracy theory. COVID did exist. We'll probably do another episode on that. Yeah. Let's stick to this book. Oh God. They're definitely gonna clip this out on. They're definitely gonna clip this on you, bro.
Oh God.
Oh God. They're like, look, the new Andrew Tate, the Hispanic version. So yeah, so I think in conclusion, with Law 10, it's so crucial for people to realize who they're hanging out with. And I think there's different, and again, I think maybe on a different podcast, we could talk about this. There are different psychological tests you could do on people, directly and indirectly, to kind of figure out who they are, right? So I think if you can figure out a way to win people by not arguing, but show with actions that you're right, you can influence more people. And if you can show with people through actions, right? I'm sorry. And if you can judge people through their actions, you will be maybe not 100%, but a lot better at differentiating who's the unlucky, the unsaid, who's the toxic, who do I need to be away from, or who should I get closer to so I can advance in life. Because at the end of the day, becoming more powerful, becoming happier is an active process. It's not a passive process.
Agreed.
Active process will get you to your goal. Active process will make you become more powerful, more influential, right? And it will make you happier and help you get all of your goals.